Welcome back to Five Friday Feedback. If this is your first time, welcome in. We are the Five Guys. I'm Dom. He's Chris. And today we're going to be going over the recap. We're going to be recapping Monday's episode of LLC write-offs. It might sound boring, but there is a lot of great tax-saving events. And if you are still here, right, we do this thing at the end of the podcast where we have a viewer, not kind of call in, but basically write in. They send us a letter, and we give our advice on it. Mainly Chris gives his advice because he's the financial wizard, right? I'm just here. He's the master. I'm the student, right? So yeah, let's dive right into it. I'm excited for it. But yeah, I gotta say, I'm being honest. The viewer mailbag is my favorite part of the week. It's my favorite part of the week, easily. So let's get to the recap. We'll get to the viewer mailbag, and then win of the week after that. Done deal. So let's hop right in.
Sounds perfect. So what did you think about, on Monday, we talked all about the top write-offs that people should take in 2024 if you own an LLC. I gave the top 5 that everyone should be doing. What do you think of those top 5? Were there any that surprised you? Any that you haven't done before in the past?
The one that talked about writing off advertising was kind of disappointing. As a business owner, you would love to write off like a new Lamborghini and slap your name on it and be like marketing, but that unfortunately doesn't really work that well. Doesn't really work all that well, but maybe next time. Maybe in the next
next time.
Maybe next time. Different country, maybe.
Necessary and ordinary are the 2 key words there.
Yeah. Fortunately so. Oh man, Taxman's always got it out for us. Gosh darn. That's all right though. Oh, there's a lot of deductions in there that I already knew about. The home office one is the one I like the best, me personally. But what was your favorite one?
Well, the one that I probably get the most, I think the home office one is one that's everyone's like, whoa, you can do that. And I think a lot of people will try to figure out ways to gamify how they can maximize that. Mm-hmm. And that's not really something I would try to play around with too much, because it does increase your audit risk substantially when you're using the home office deduction. Mm-hmm. Because too many people, they'll try to write off huge portions of their house because they're like, oh yeah, well, sometimes I take my laptop and I'll do it over here and I'll do it over there and I'll do it over there. It needs to be a ordinary part of your house that is used solely for your business. So if that is a desk in a room, then you can write off the square foot of the desk and where you're sitting, which you can't write off the whole room unless you're using the whole room. If the whole room is for me, my door that's over there, that door, past that door, I'm in my office. I can write off this entire room, and I could very easily make that case if I was to get audited. You got to come into this office. There's nothing else in here, but the work of the stuff that I do for my work.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't write off the closet, right?
I mean, you could, but I'm not going to risk it, because if someone opened it up and they saw my wife's dresses and all this and my storage stuff in there, they're going to be like, how is this office expenses? I don't know. I don't know. It's not worth the risk. I sometimes I put my camping stuff in there because I have to camp to be a financial advisor. It's just required.
Yeah. So don't be writing off things that are kind of silly, right? Mm-hmm. Keep it within the rule book. Keep it legit. We don't want an audit. We don't even want the risk of an audit. So let's just play by the rules. Basically.
Yeah. I guess the way that I always thought of it is, if it sounds sketchy, it probably is sketchy.
Fair.
If you're kind of going out on a limb to get a tax write-off, it's not worth it.
No, a lot of these tax saving plans, especially for businesses, sometimes are a little bit sketchy. And I don't know if we'd be doing that if the IRS was, a 1 million member organization. I think they only have 40,000 employees, right?
Yeah, and they just went through a big hiring where they hired, I don't remember, it's 100,000 people or something like that, and everyone was freaking out. But it was also, they never replaced all the other people that retired, so they had to go on a big hiring spree to bring in people that they never replaced who left.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'll have to be even more careful now. No, I'm pretty careful when it comes to taxes. I really don't want to. I don't want to get into it with the U.S. tax freaking IRS people.
Yeah, they're very able to garnish wages. That's their game. They can garnish your wages.
Yeah, they hold a lot of power. I don't like that. Scary, a little bit scary, but they're not going to get audited, so it's fine.
And if we do get audited, it's going to be okay, because we have diligent record keeping and we never took deductions or write-offs that we weren't supposed to be doing anyways in the first place because we were aware of the information and we stuck to the rule of the law.
Bingo. Big that IRS. Okay, so do we want to do just a quick little recap of each of the write-offs?
Sure. I think the first thing we should do before we do that, though, is make sure we understand the difference between a tax credit and a tax deduction.
Bingo. Great place.
Because too many people think that, oh, if I get to write off $1,000 in taxes, it means that I just saved myself $1,000, which it does not. If you write off $1,000 in taxes, it's probably going to save you $200, maybe $250, depending on your tax bracket. But a tax deduction or a tax write-off is an expense that you can deduct from your taxable income, reducing your overall tax bill. So if you made $100,000 last year and you get to write off $10,000, that means you're only telling the government, I made $90,000. But you still had to spend $10,000 to save $2,000 in taxes. Where a tax credit is something very different than a tax deduction. A tax credit would be, I have a tax credit for $10,000. If I owe $10,000 in taxes, that means I owe nothing in taxes. I get to that credit offsets, but tax credits are much more difficult to come by than our tax deductions. Tax deductions, that was the whole Monday pod, was finding all of those.
And what if I had a $5,000 tax bill and a $10,000 credit? Do I get the other $5,000 in my bank account?
Oh, I have no idea. Maybe you can carry something forward.
I think you would get. I would imagine just getting all these credits. Yeah, the only way I know of to get a credit, actually, I know two ways. Solar panels, getting solar panels, and not always. Obviously, I'm not saying like go out and get solar panels and just hope for the best. But in certain areas, you can get a tax credit, or getting solar panels. That, and sometimes they have them for EV cars as well. Kind of incentivize it, which I like. I like a good incentive.
Yeah. So the credits are nice because say at the end of the year, your CPA comes to you and says that Dom, you owe $2,000 in taxes. You're like, okay, cool. I have this $500 credit. So now I only owe $1,500. Where most people would be like, okay, how can I make some deductions? How can I spend money to save more money on taxes? And I think it's a fair trade-off to spend money on growing your business in order to save some money on your taxes. But remember, you are still having to spend money to save money. You're spending money over here to save money from the IRS over here.
Exactly. I don't want to say it's kind of gimmicky, kind of weird, but it's part of the game. It's not the whole game, but it is a part of the game. And if you want to be good at the game, you have to learn all facets of it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they don't understand what a tax write-off means. So they just think it's free money. And a lot of people use them, especially like CPAs and advisors. They'll try to use it as like, oh, I can teach you all these like fancy ways to avoid paying taxes. And it's like, well, you're not really avoiding paying taxes. You're just paying a little bit less in taxes by doing write-offs, but you're still spending money to do that. Yeah. Like even to get any tax deduction, even if you want to do like an oil and gas deal or other deals where you can get tax credits, you have to invest other money that would normally be going to something else, maybe to living a life, going on a trip, doing something like that. You have to use that money in order to save some money on taxes. So don't let the tail wag the dog there.
That's a funny analogy. I like that. I'm just trying to imagine that. That's wild. Okay. So what else? What else do we need to know?
No, nothing too big. I mean, just make sure that you understand that whenever if you identify $10,000 in tax deductions you can take, you're only saving yourself $2,500 in taxes. You're not saving yourself $10,000.
Interesting.
So if someone says to you like, "Oh, well, Dom, go ahead and just buy a new monitor for your laptop or for your computer, and just write it off as a tax. Write it off on your taxes. It's fine. Like it's free. It's a free monitor. Then it's really not a free monitor. You're saving money. You get to deduct a little bit, but that's still money that you could have taken. You could have taken that $1,000 for that monitor, and let's say it's a really expensive monitor, and you could have paid yourself $800 or $750, and then pay $250 to the government, or you can take none of it and then get your new monitor. But that's $850 that you do not have in your pocket anymore. It's gone.
Bingo.
It's now in the monitor.
Mm-hmm. Damn monitor took all my money. As I'm sitting here with like a 49-inch. How big? It's a really big monitor. Yeah, that thing was. And where were you when I bought this? Good Lord.
I know, right?
I could have credit card hacked it and I could have wrote it off. What the heck, man? Okay. Yeah, that's actionable. I think as long as you know the principles of writing stuff off, and writing stuff off isn't just for businesses too, right? You can write things off as a regular human, right?
You can't just remember
it's
that the standard deduction for a regular person is $12,500 as of right now, and it often makes more sense just to take the standard deduction than to try to find enough deductions to reach $12,500. It's just most of the time easier. That's why 90% of people take the standard deduction. Are there people that don't do that? Yeah, for sure. But businesses like LLCs don't have standard deductions.
Good to know.
So we do need to keep records of everything.
I might be jumping the gun here, and I always am on a Friday pod. But when are we gonna hit that viewer mailbag? It's a juicy one today.
Just throw it a little bit.
A little bit. Okay.
Today, I say
it's a juicy one, guys. You're gonna want to stick around for this one.
I say we talk a little bit about the 5 major ones or major expenses that everyone should be writing off. Beautiful. And the first one is your startup and organizational costs. So do you remember how much you can write off in your startup and organizational costs in the first year?
Yeah, so it's about $5,000 you can write off in startup costs. Also, I'd like to add a little side note. If you're brand new, you never started a business or anything, right? $5,000 for startup costs is quite abnormal, I believe.
Yep.
LLC, getting a CPA or someone to handle that, a couple $100, right? Business license, couple bucks. Not too much expense wise. What was the one you said, like a study or something you mentioned last podcast? You could get done.
Oh yeah, you can do like feasibility studies.
That's what it is. Yep. To see if the business is going to be viable in this area, right? I wouldn't teach surfing lessons in Arizona, right?
Yep.
Ain't got no need, and no water. So yeah, that would make sense. But really, you're not going to be spending. I would hope, unless you have a really expensive attorney, lawyer that handles that stuff. But over 5,000, you can carry that over, if I'm not mistaken, for like next 15 years.
15 years, you could what's it called? Amortize it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you can do. So maybe someone who's going to be over $5,000 in business expenses is someone who already has a successful business, and they're going to be opening up a new business venture that they're already going to be working on. It's like a new portion of an existing business. I could definitely see that being over $5,000, especially in legal fees. Yeah, of having to have like a new partnership or something like that formed that's attached to a larger entity. I can definitely see that happening. Yeah, but if you're someone who's like, I don't know anything about tax write-offs, I've never done any of this, I'm trying to figure it out, and you're watching this as like your first video, $5,000 for startup and organizational costs, it would be astronomical for the average person.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, we talk about this on the pod all the time. We are the FI guys for financial independence. But unfortunately, in America, most people can't cover a $400 or $500 medical bill or unexpected expense. That's what we're dealing with right now. So I hope when you hear $5,000 to start a business, I hope that doesn't discourage you, because that's not at all the case. Right?
No. I think I started my business for $300. That was like my first one that I ever did.
And I
had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, and we're talking about just like forming the LLC, right? We're not talking about like, hey, I'm a baker and I need to buy an oven. Right? We're not talking about that. That's a whole different type of stuff. We're just talking about the legal proceedings, because that's what you can write off.
I think something that some people should remember is you don't need to have the LLC to start a business. You can always run a business as a sole proprietor and just do it for a while, and then start the LLC as money starts to come in. I think so many people, they'll start to like, oh, well, in order for me to start my business and have an LLC and do all this stuff, and they end up never starting a business because they end up just getting themselves bogged down in so much concern of all the things they have to cover that they never end up doing it. And that's so first things first is start the business, make sure it's viable. Like start selling things to people. You can write it off in your normal taxes, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the funniest things. I had a professor in college, and I was asking him about LLCs and S corps and like sole proprietor and like insurance. He's like, I don't have any of that. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I never did that. And really successful guy, like making tons of money, doing what he loves. I was like, huh, interesting. But I think,
Yeah,
go for it.
it's funny how much of like finance and all these things are just like, it's the icing on the cake. Like the main thing of the cake is the cake itself, or like the actual like bread part
Business,
of it.
yeah.
But so many people, they're focusing on like, oh, the special like garnishments you put on top of it. And all that stuff. Is it nice? Yeah, it's nice, but it's not the main body. It's not the thing that's actually important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's important. Like when you're starting a business, remember that remember why you started the business. Starting a bakery, I want to make the best cakes possible in my area. The cakes locally kind of suck, right? You're not starting the business to optimize your taxes or, debate on whether an S corp is the best move for you or an LLC or sole proprietor. It's like, no, let's make some damn cakes here. Let's make some damn cakes here. And that's where one thing that like worries me about people who are just like starting out. It's like, it's both really easy to start an LLC, but if you've never done it, it's kind of like scary a little bit. It's kind of
everything's scary if you've never done it, because it's a black box. Like you have no idea what it looks like.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is that people need to come to themselves and say, like, other people have figured it out in the past. I can figure it out. Is it figure outable? I may not know the information right now, but is it figure outable? Has other people figured it out? And if they have, then I can figure it out, especially because we have Google now. And we can Google literally anything and see how other people have done it.
Bingo. Dude, ChatGPT is a heck of a thing, guys. Use it. Please. Please use it. Okay, so we talked about number one, obviously you can write off your startup costs in regards to legal fees, LLC. If you want to listen to the last 10 minutes, then I'm not going to recap it again. But number two, what was number two?
Vehicle expenses. So if you have a vehicle that is the sole purpose is for your business, you only drive it for business, then you could write off the entire value of the vehicle. But most people, they don't have that. Most people don't have a vehicle that only is for their business. So what most people end up doing is they have to write off the percentage used for their vehicle for the business is written off, and the percentage that is used for them personally is not written off. And there's two different methods of doing that. One is the standard mileage rate method, where you're going to take 0.65% or 65 cents on every mile driven. You get to write that off. Every mile driven for the business, of course, or the actual expense method, which takes a lot more work, but you get to write off the insurance, the tires, the depreciation, the windshield wipers, windshield wiper fluid, oil, all that stuff you get to write off in there. But for both of those, you're going to have to make sure that you're tracking your miles. And that's something that's very important. There are so many different apps you can use to track your miles, but everything that comes down to writing off any tax write-offs, anything when it comes to the IRS, is you need to keep diligent record keeping.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Chris and I both use apps to handle that. We prefer the digital method, honestly. Just having boxes of paper and receipts, it's just not our style. It's kind of messy, to be honest. If we want to find something really quickly, we just look it up. Okay. I personally use
I just go to that month and that year. I use a SimplyWise.
SimplyWise? Okay. And they're both paid services, unfortunately. But yeah, done deal with that. No issue with that.
Yeah, pretty easy. The next big thing that everyone should be doing, because especially if you're starting a new LLC, the biggest thing you're going to be doing is trying to tell everyone, hey, I have this new LLC, come and purchase my whatever. If I make cakes, if I fix mufflers, whatever it is, you're trying to let everyone know, the world. Because if you have the best product in the world, but no one knows about it, your business is not going to stick around for too long. Because you need to have marketing and advertising. And the nice thing is that is 100% deductible in the year that you take it.
Yes, sir. We like that. I like that 100%. Yep. I'm a fan of that. I'm definitely 100%.
It just needs to be ordinary and necessary for your business.
And that's the key.
If you're someone that bakes muffins and you sell muffins to people, if you want to go and buy a Lamborghini and put muffins on top of it and say like Dom's Muffin Services, there's no way in hell that you're going to pass an IRS audit when you say, "Oh no, I needed the Lamborghini for my muffin business."
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know about that one, Chief. Yeah, that's there we go talking about food again. There we go talking about food. I gotta eat before the podcast. My goodness. Okay, so It is 100% written off, but it has to be ordinary and what was that second word? Ordinary and
necessary for your business. So yeah, it just can't be extravagant or unrelated. Just think of it that way. If you're trying to justify it in your brain, don't do it. Just think like, would a reasonable person, if they heard me say like, oh yeah, I have a financial service business, so I needed a Lamborghini for that. If the average person would be like, why? Then you should probably say it's not worth doing. Because remember, if you get audited, it is not you are innocent until proven guilty. You are guilty, and you have to prove your innocence.
Bingo.
And not to a jury of your peers, to some guy who works for the IRS named Chuck. Like you have to convince Chuck.
Yep, the average Joe that it is ordinary and necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Simple enough. We'll pass on the Lamborghini advertisement for the Five Guys right now. But you know what? But what if we had? How about this? What if we had a podcast on cars, car reviews, stuff like that, and we had a not a Lamborghini, but something reasonable, something quick, and we slapped our logo, all blue, yellow writing, Five Guys, Spotify, all that stuff. Would that count?
You see, here's the difficult part: is where they could say that is, why did you need to buy the car to do that?
Yeah,
couldn't you just have purchased like wrapped a different car, wrapped an advertising car? Because there are cars that will do that and will drive around all town. But where people start to get into a bad place is that they'll buy their own vehicle, they'll wrap it, and then they try writing off the marketing expense and the vehicle expense. They try writing it off in two places. That's where you get yourself into some trouble.
I saw this one guy for his like detailing. It wasn't detailing. It was like a car, like wrapping cars. He bought a Tesla Model Plaid, a Plaid Tesla, and he wrapped it. It looked good, but I'm just like, you could have got a basic Tesla. Like you could have got like a $30,000 Tesla. You didn't have to get the one that's like $100,000, and just sits there. I'm like, that's a waste.
Yeah, I mean, it is a waste. You just think about how much money that he ended up spending, or how much money he didn't bring into his own business to have that vehicle there, and that's something you have to consider too. And if the IRS does audit him, he's going to have to convince them that that $100,000 vehicle was a necessary and ordinary expense for his wrapping business. I think 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose that argument.
Yeah.
But that's the risk that they're willing to take on. And that's the big thing when it comes to this, is that there aren't these clear guidelines and rules that everyone wants there to be. It really is up to your own discretion as to what you write off and when you write off and what you do with it.
Bingo.
And that makes it both risky and kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so what else we got?
Home office deductions, I always think is a big one, but it is a huge red flag for the IRS that if you're taking that deduction, because you need to make sure that you have a regular and exclusive use or exclusive area in your house that is used for business only. So if I had my office here, but like I had a kids area right there and like all this and like
foosball table in the back.
Yeah, there's a foosball table and like a gaming area and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm writing off this whole room. That's not going to work out. Like it needs to be, this is the domicile only for business. That only business is happening inside this place for the most part. I mean, obviously, if my wife comes in here and talks to me, so I'm like, oh, we have to go outside and talk. You can't talk in here. Like,
yeah, they're watching. Turn off the camera.
Yeah, they're watching.
Okay. I just imagine like it's like an average Tuesday afternoon, and just like search warrant, and then bust through the door. IRS agents.
IRS.
It's like, what are we doing? Got the tape measure out there, like measuring. It's like, let me check your browser history. Oh, what is this? YouTube? You're watching videos? This is a work only area. Shut it down.
Definitely not going to happen. Never going to happen.
No, they're not going to do that. It'd be funny, not really, but they're never going to do that. So.
Yeah,
that's nice.
But the nice thing is like we can write off mortgage interest, rents, homeowners insurance, HOA fees, utilities, property taxes. All that stuff can be written off under that guise of the under that deduction. Yes. So it's very, very good. But just remember that you have to make sure you have the diligent record keeping with those ones. And for that one, I would need a CPA. Like you want a CPA in order to make sure that they're doing that correctly. I don't think I would be comfortable doing it for myself.
No. It's all about what you're comfortable with, though. You know.
Mhm.
So we
Yeah, I
talked.
mean, maybe if you've done it before and you know what you're doing, then go for it.
Yeah.
And the final one would be like commercial office rent. So if you rent an office, you don't work at home, then you could write off the entire amount that you're paying there.
Mhm. So I mean, it's simple enough there. I mean, there's not too
Yeah.
much we can talk about there. So we got the startup costs, we got the vehicle expenses, we got the marketing budget, home office
Mhm.
deduction, and the
Rent.
last one we just talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, rental offices. And then, I always think it's important to always say, like, whenever you do business meals, you can only write off 50% of business meals, but either you or an employee needs to be present there.
Mhm.
I think that depreciation is always something important to understand. That's where you really want a CPA, because the rate at which equipment or furniture or other business assets depreciate all depends on that particular thing that you're depreciating. So you need to worry about that. And then travel expenses is where people get in a lot of trouble too.
Yeah.
Because people will try writing off their trip to Hawaii with their family as a full, and they try to write off the entire expense. And you just can't really do that. We have a podcast. I can't say, hey, I want to go to Japan, and while I'm in Japan, I'm going to do a podcast with Dominic, and I'm going to write off my entire Japan trip. Like, that does not work.
It was so good, though. It was so
It would be.
I know.
Like, I'll tell you. So
we talked about recording a podcast in Japan too.
yeah, we did, but there'd be no way I'd be able to do it because I have to say, like, ordinary and ordinary, is it ordinary? No,
Yeah.
it's not. Like, me going all the way to Japan to record a podcast in a room in Japan doesn't make sense.
You wanted the cooler background. It makes sense.
Yeah. But now
Okay.
I'll tell you a story about, I did go to Mexico City earlier this year and met with somebody there. And while I was there, we stayed there for 4 days, and I was able to write off pretty much that entire thing because I went there and I met with another business owner there. But even when I did that, I flew down there with my wife, but I only wrote off my ticket. I didn't write off her ticket. I wrote off the hotel room because I got a 1-bedroom hotel room. I was going to write that whole thing off.
The wife
because
got another hotel room.
No, because I would,
outside.
had she been there and not been there, I still would have had to pay for that hotel room.
Yeah.
And then all of my meals, we would split it, and then we would split the meals, and I would write off my meals, not hers.
Gotcha. Okay. Getting technical with it, getting deep in the sauce.
And that's how you do it. That's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
The place where you get yourself into risk is where you fly everyone down to Mexico and you do all this stuff, and you're just like, you're writing everything off. Is there still like only a 20% chance of you getting audited? Yeah, it's still pretty low, but you don't want to open yourself up to that risk.
Agreed.
And with that, I say we get into Five Friday feedback.
My man, the words I've been waiting for. I wasn't going to interrupt you on that one. I wasn't going to. Alrighty, well, it is my favorite time of the week. Viewer mailbag on Five Friday feedback, where we do a little bit of a deep dive into the community as you guys have sent us letters. Today's letter is, lost my job and I have $4,100 in mortgage payments. Tamales. Dear Fi Guys.
A month.
Oof. Here we go. Lock in, boys. Alrighty. Dear Fi Guys, I wanted to share a recent development in my life, and I seek your advice as I navigate through them. Alrighty. Recently, I've been informed that I've been laid off my tech job. Sorry to hear about that. It was a role I very much enjoyed and relied on for providing a salary of $150,000 a year. Very nice. That's a great salary. Depending on where you live, that's a great salary. But generally,
that's a good salary pretty much anywhere you live. I mean,
think so? Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the news comes with a significant financial implications, and I want to be proactive about managing my situation. Last July, I made the decision to purchase a house. Cool. And my monthly mortgage is $3,600 with the addition of a $500 payment to HOA every month, which covers sewer, water, but not electricity. I've never heard of HOA covering the water and the sewer. That's kind of cool. 500 is also a lot of freaking money. This brings my total monthly cost to about $4,100. Fortunately, I did make a wise decision, and I picked up a roommate last August who contributes $1,400 a month.
House hacking.
Let's go, baby. Effectively lowering my payment to $2,700. That's freaking sizable. Let's go. While I continue to receive my salary until August, I have about 2.5 months of severance pay at my base,
Lucky.
right? At my base rate. I am aware that my job market for the role as a materials process engineer is currently slow. It takes people in
Yeah.
my field roughly 5 to 6 months longer to secure a new job. Additionally, I anticipate that I may not be able to command as high a salary as I did in the tech industry. Understandable. To prepare for this transition, I want to go ahead and figure out my finances and save as much as possible as quickly as possible. I have approximately $150,000 in stocks. Very nice.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Sweet. But my intention is not to touch that and only use it as a last resort. Currently, I have about $40,000 in the bank, which provides me with some cushion, but I recognize the importance of being prudent with my spending. In the past year, I haven't been the best at spending. I haven't been the best. That's a good thing to have. Don't be that good at spending. It'd be, or I guess that would be, maybe that's the opposite. Never mind. In the past year, I haven't been the best at saving due to the expenses related to therapy and courses. As I'm working on transitioning to another industry on the side, this investment in my personal growth and career development was necessary, but has left me in a position where I need to be very strategic about my finances now.
Well, before you go on,
Go for it.
that's interesting that they were looking to maybe move it to a different course. Maybe the person could look at this as like kind
Time
of
to
a
pivot.
forced jumping off point to start whatever that new thing is.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
this really could be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my major concerns is determining at what point I might need to consider selling my property and if my job search extends longer than anticipated. Okay. I want to ensure that I'm making informed decisions and not waiting too long to act. Yeah, that's true. I wonder what if well, I'm trying to think of different ideas. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
I would greatly appreciate any advice or insights on this topic for managing my finances during this period, particularly when it comes to strategic savings and making tough decisions about assets like my home. If you've been through something similar or know of resources that could help me, I would love to hear them. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and any support you can offer would be greatly appreciated. I'm hopeful that with careful planning and support of my community, I can navigate this challenging period and come out stronger on the other side. From lost my tech job with mortgages high and income low, I'm feeling blue, but with your help, I'll see it through. Okay.
Okay.
40,000 in the bank. That's
Yeah, I
just
mean, this guy's clearly he's someone who has been a pretty diligent saver. I know he said in the last year or so he hasn't been super diligent because he's been paying for courses and therapy. Which, if you're going to be paying for anything and it's self improvement like therapy and self improvement in courses, I'm all for it. Like,
definitely.
Yeah, I'm all for it in self improvement. So go ahead and do that. That's going to return a lot. But I think he's really concerned over something that is pretty common for most people. So this is the beauty of financial dependence. Your worst case scenario is everybody else's every day. So by having $150,000 in stocks, and I don't know if that's in qualified or non-qualified stocks, and a $40,000 savings, his concern, where most people would be like, I just lost my job and now I'm done, like right now, he gets to drag that out for who knows how long. Plus, he has 2.5 months of severance pay that we're not even like talking about. So he said that it's going to take him 5 to 6 months on average longer than it takes the normal person to get a job. I don't know how long it takes the normal person to get a job, 3 months, maybe 4 months, and it's going to take him 5 to 6 months. But let's say he gets 2.5 months of normal pay already. So he's already good there. Doesn't have to worry about that. So that takes him out to whenever that takes him out to, August, I think. And then after that, he has $40,000 and he's only trying to make 5 to 6 months before he gets another job. I'm really not seeing a concern here of having to like sell the house. So I think he's kind of catastrophizing as to like, when am I going to need to sell the house? Because I think we're like really putting the cart before the horse. Like, I need to sell the house. We're already in this bad spot. It's like, you have $40,000 in your emergency fund. Losing your job constitutes the emergency to use the emergency fund.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's good to have that he has 150 in stocks. I know he doesn't want to touch it, but
No, I get it. I definitely get it. But I think, like I mentioned it earlier, but he said that he has been looking at starting some new side thing that he's spending all of his money on courses for. This could definitely be a chance for him to be able to maybe start a new business or start something like that. Sometimes out of our greatest tragedies comes our greatest successes. So, you lost a job that you liked and was good for you, but can we now use this as a jumping off point? You have 2.5 months of severance pay. Or you don't have to work at all. Can you put 2.5 months as this jumping off point to start whatever that side hustle was, or whatever that thing that you were trying to do was? Even if it isn't, it's your own thing. Even if it's finding a new job entirely or transitioning to another thing entirely, can you do that?
yeah, that's the leap. That's the leap of faith I think he has to take. Now that he has all this time to, try to do more. I don't know what these courses are, but I totally agree with you. 100% bullish on self-improvement, 100% bullish on turning tragedy to triumph, no matter how difficult it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and like obviously we don't know what his expenses are in general. Like all we know is his mortgage is $4,100, and thank goodness that you did take on that tenant, and hopefully they don't leave, because that's going to really help you out. But given that they do stay, you have 2.5 months of severance, $40,000, and then you have 120 or 150, I can't remember, in stocks.
Yep.
You probably have like a year to a year and a half, given that your expenses aren't anything crazy, of runway there. Like that's more than enough time to figure it out. I understand we don't want to dip into the stocks. I understand we don't want to dip into the emergency fund, but that's the reason that we have those things, is to take care of us when we falter. And this really, I think you're going to look back on this and be like, this is the moment where everything came together. Mm-hmm. But I think we should talk a little bit that $4,100 in mortgage payment on $150,000 salary, that's pretty darn high. So it's really good that at the beginning that you did take on that tenant in order to help you out. But it's an unfortunate situation in that that's normal. Like a mortgage at $4,100, unfortunately, is just normal now. And not everyone has a $400,000 income in order to make up for that. So it just kind of shows like how bad of a situation like millennials and Gen Z find themselves in, where the housing market is just so unbelievably unaffordable that someone who's an individual making $150,000, which is a very solid income, is having to put so much of it towards just being able to secure a house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, it's definitely not great.
Yeah, because what's 41,000 times? That's almost 50,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Third of his income.
A third of his income is going just to his mortgage, which isn't that bad, and that's a third of his income before taxes, before everything else. Mm-hmm. So, I think only like the top 10% of income brackets can really afford to buy houses right now, and like not over leverage themselves in order to purchase the home. It's just a very difficult situation that we all kind of find ourselves in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I was this guy's financial advisor, the first thing I would say is we need to make sure that we create a detailed budget, because I know that you're worried about going out and spending too much. So we know that your cost is pretty much fixed at the $4,100 for the mortgage and for the HOA. You really can't negotiate on that very much. So things we could do is, how can we make sure that going out and partying, food, all those things, can we make sure that we keep all the discretionary spending to a minimum during this time where we're in this transition? And this transition could either be finding a new job in the tech industry, or in your current salary, in your current role, finding a new job in that second type of business that you were trying to get into, or starting your own company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another thing I'm thinking is, if you have a house that you're paying $4,100 for, you have one roommate. My guess is it probably has another room. Could you bring in another roommate and lower your mortgage even more? Would that be possible? Could that be something you could do?
That's a good idea. It's a good idea.
You know, we
Anything
could
to get
really
that
try to,
expenses down.
yeah, we could try to maximize our income streams, right? Could we try to explore like maybe some freelance opportunities, do some consulting on the side during these 2.5 months while we're looking for other jobs? You know, the house hacking, bringing another person would be super easy to do, I would think. There's
I would
always
hope.
people looking for people to work for.
Or
So
people to live with.
yeah, for people to live with. But I think during this transition time while you're looking for jobs, because while applying for jobs is very difficult, it's not a full-time job. You're not going to be sitting there 8 hours a day just applying. I don't think you would be. So is there anything you can do for like temporary gig work on the side to really minimize the loss of income that you're going to have and to start saving more money during this time where you're still getting that severance? Because that severance that's huge. Most people don't get that. They usually just get a deuces and, you know, good luck on your way out. Don't get hit on the door.
It's so true. Yeah, that severance package is nice. That's really respectable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
wish
then-
you go for it.
Yeah, I would say that you also need to make sure that you're going to use your emergency fund wisely, because you said you don't want to dip into those stocks, which I would agree. Let's try to avoid that if we can. But if we need to, know that that is there. But for the emergency fund, you have $40,000. Let's make sure that we're spending that $40,000 wisely by making sure that we're sticking to our budget as best we can. This is not the time when we lose our job to be going on vacations, going to Mexico, going and doing any of these trips. This is the time to really buckle down, to kind of go very bologna and bread as we can, within reason, of course. Like don't cut down to like, I'm not going to eat for the next week in order to save money. That's obviously not a good decision. But what can we do to cut expenses as best we can and still live a good life? Because that's very, very important to make sure that we have that balance.
Yeah.
What would you say to this person, Dominic?
I do like step one, get a budget in place. Cut costs in every area. Pound the
And
pavement
my
for a
guess is he
job.
already has a budget in place. Like if he saved that much money in emergency fund and in stocks, he probably already knows what his budget is. So I would look at every line item and be like, is this actually a necessary expense? And if it isn't, if it's not a necessary expense, if it's just like, this is something that I do because I had the extra income, I would cut it for right now.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, and I would pound the pavement, just start looking for a job as much as you can, you know, and in the free time, explore the other side hustle career option that he was looking at. But I like the idea as well as I would assume that he doesn't have any more room for another roommate.
Okay.
Because if so, he would have gotten one, or maybe there's an extra room when he is as his office or whatever. But dude, if you can house hack your almost like full mortgage payment, dude, game over. That's sweet. That's freaking sweet. But yeah, no, I mean it's a scary place to be, but I think he's making it scarier than he actually is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, right now he's asking like, at what point do I need to consider selling the house? Like, we're very far away from that. You have, before you're like considering selling the house and all these things at a loss, especially, I would say like look into the stocks. You have at least a year and a half of money in your pocket before getting a job.
I do the math here. Yeah, just on the 50,000 alone, like if that was just his only expenses, like 19 months.
Yeah,
and he still has the severance pay, and he sells the stocks. So
yeah, so I mean that was just me guesstimating. I said 18 months guesstimating. So yeah, 19. I mean, even better.
Yeah.
So he's got a very long runway, and I know it seems scary because he's the one in this situation, right?
Yeah,
it's easy for us to say like, oh, just do this. It's so easy. Like you're totally fine. Like you have $40,000 and $120,000 in stocks. You have $160,000 of money you can go ahead and invest. Cool, go and do it. I guess one thing I would say for the stocks is if you are concerned that it's going to take you a really long time to work, maybe if you're like fully invested in the S&P 500 or like all that is aggressive, take some of the risk off the table with some of that money. I wouldn't say take it out of the market entirely, but maybe like go more to bonds for a little while, just in case you do have to dip into that stockpile. Hopefully, again, you don't. But
what if he invested in dividend stocks instead?
You can do that too. The only thing is whenever you invest in a stock, even if it's a dividend, it's still an equity and it could still lower in case of a market downturn.
Yeah.
And you may have to still sell the stock in order to come up with the cash.
True. Yeah.
So just deleverage the investment portfolio. And that's something that you can talk to an advisor, or maybe you can do some research, figure out what's going to be best for figuring that out for yourself. But that's certainly something you can do, is start to deleverage that, because the worst case scenario is you have 120,000 and now we move into a recession where we have a 30, 40, 50% correction. And now your $120,000 stock portfolio goes down to $60,000. And we're out of job for even longer because the economy is in the tank because the stock market is down. And remember that the economy and the stock market are two very different things.
Yep. Yeah.
They are correlated, but they are not causational. They are unrelated to one another.
Bingo.
So that's something to think about too. If you're having trouble finding a job, you have a lot of time here. And it sounds like you also have time to pivot. And my recommendation, my personal recommendation would be, look for a job inside that new industry that you were trying to learn about. This really could be the catalyst for the thing that's going to start you into the next career, our next chapter of your life. Because even if it sounds like you liked your job, there was a reason you were looking at other things on the side. Maybe it's a job that you want to run yourself and be your own boss, or maybe it's just a completely different industry that you're more passionate about. This could be a very good starting point to figuring that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I hope that helps. Best of luck from Arizona. And with that being said, that is the viewer mailbag. Now we get on to win of the week. Let's see. You want to go first, Chris?
Sure. Yeah. I am. If you don't see me on YouTube, I am looking very tan. I just got back from Tulum yesterday. Me and my wife did a week there, so it's always fun to go down to different parts of the world, travel. I always like getting away from all of it, just because I think it's one of those moments where you realize how busy you are even when you aren't busy, like how much your brain is always just doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to get away from all that and just to be here, be present with my spouse. And one thing that I bought while I was in Mexico, normally I don't buy things, but I bought this super cool panther head.
That is cool. It's sick.
Yeah. And this is in Mexico, you have to negotiate for everything. I know here in America, we're always terrified to negotiate. But some guy came to me on a beach and tried selling me this cool panther head thingy that's made out of wood. And he started at $500 for this, to which I laughed and said, no way. Then he said, okay, fine, $150. And I was like, well, I mean, it is wood. Like it is legitimate wood and it does look cool and all.
Mhm.
But I was like, no way. So I told him, I have $30. And so we're definitely not going to make a deal. He's like, no, it's $150. And I'm like, well, I have $30. And then we went back and forth for a while and I got it for $30. So the power of negotiation can really take you anywhere. We started from $500 at first to me getting it at $30. There are so many people that are afraid to negotiate in this world. And I think until you go into other places, other countries in this world, that you realize that negotiation is just a normal part of everyone's everyday life and is not as scary and as combative as you need to be. Because at the end of the day, that person made some money for something that they probably spent $10 on to buy, because this is manufactured.
Mm-hmm.
It looks cool. It looks real.
Yeah.
It's definitely real. It's real wood, but it's manufactured. They spent $10 on it. They made $20. I'm happy because I got something that I would have definitely spent $40 in a store for.
Yeah.
To get.
Yeah.
So everyone wins, but you have to be willing to negotiate. Because had not, I wouldn't have bought it. First off, had it been $500 or even $150. But there's always room in this world for negotiation.
Absolutely. Well, my win of the week is that I got a job. I got a new job. So that's my win of the week. I'm not gonna go too much into detail. I don't want you to come visit me at work, people. But yeah, that's my win of the week. And yeah, that's pretty much it for today's podcast. I know that was a short. Normally I'm yapping all the time about my win of the week, but today's a short one. I won't pain your ears with more yapping from me. But
And with your new job, Dominic, will you be leaving the Five Guys?
No, I'll still be here. I'm always here, baby. Let's go. I'm not leaving. Get out.
Good.
All right. But yeah, guys, with that being said, if you're still around, like, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff.
Leave us up to a 5-star review on Spotify, or leave us a thumbs up on YouTube and a comment, please.
And the fee for the show, please tell a friend. It's always better to go on this financial journey with someone else. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a great weekend, a great week ahead. And we'll see you on the next pod on Monday.
For sure. Have a great week, everybody. Later, Dom.
Peace.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.